Unit 1, The Financial System. Lecture 1, Introduction to the Financial System, Part A. What you're looking at now is a fairly basic diagram referred to as the circular flow of income. It's a very fundamental way of understanding how income is generated within the economy and who the major participants are. The three participants are households, businesses, and the government. Now, households and businesses interact with each other through the transfer of goods and services. Households provide labor for which they receive income, and businesses provide goods and services for which they receive income. Income is transferred between households and businesses and the government in the form of taxes, and the government providing services. So the financial system was set up in order to allow for money to be transferred between those who have excess funds to those who have a need for those funds. So the financial system is a set of arrangements which facilitates the lending and borrowing of funds, and this function is performed by financial intermediaries. So the financial system, through financial intermediaries, facilitates the transfer of funds between lenders and borrowers. They sit in the middle of that transaction. It also allows the creation of additional money when this is required, and this is a unique capability of banks. Further, it allows the creation of markets in debt and equity instruments. Now, debt and equity instruments are long-term capital instruments or financial instruments, and they allow corporates and other entities to raise long-term funds in the capital market for investments in capital and infrastructure projects. And the financial system is set up in a way that allows for the pricing and allocation of funds to be done efficiently. So when looking at the financial system, it actually is made up of financial markets, for example, capital markets and money markets. We have financial intermediaries, the likes of banks and brokers, and you have other financial institutions. The reason for all of them is so that the financial decisions of household firms and governments can be executed. So really what you're going to see here on the slide is a lot of terminology, and I think it's important not to be overwhelmed by it. So quite simply, an intermediary, as we talked about before, is somebody who sits in the middle of the transaction between the borrowers and the lenders, okay, the savers and the borrowers. The allocation of funds, well, it just means that the system allows for those people who want to borrow the funds and those people who want to lend the funds for this to be done efficiently, okay, so that the funds are allocated to the most efficient use. The price mechanism, how these funds are valued, what price is placed, and this very simply is done by supply and demand, much the same as it is done in almost any other market that you come across. And essentially what is nice about this market is that it operates 24 hours a day, okay. It's a global market, and transactions can take place 24 hours a day. So now we're going to move on to looking at how funds flow within the financial system from lender to borrower. We're going to look at the elements of the financial system, and at this point we're going to focus on 4 elements of the financial system, although there are more. We're going to look at lenders and borrowers. They are the non-financial economic units that undertake the lending and borrowing in the process. We're going to look at financial intermediaries or financial institutions. They facilitate the transfer of those funds by putting themselves between lenders and borrowers. We'll look at financial instruments. These are marketable or non-marketable, which are created to satisfy the needs of the various participants in the system. And then we're going to look at financial markets. These are the institutional arrangements and conventions that exist for the issue and trading or dealing of the financial instruments, and you know it as the JSE in our country. The other two elements of the financial markets involve the creation of money when required, and this is the unique money creating ability of banks, primarily their domain. And the last one is price discovery. How the price of equity and the price of money or debt is determined in that market. We don't look at those specifically because they're a little bit more difficult to demonstrate. Now in this slide we're looking at how the four elements that we've previously mentioned interact within the financial system. And the four elements, to summarize, are the lenders and borrowers, financial institutions and intermediaries, the financial instruments and financial markets. Now, when money flows between lenders and borrowers, it can move in one of two ways. It can move directly from lender to borrower with just a broker in between, so that the lender and borrower actually know each other or interact with each other. And this is direct financing. And here in this situation, the broker or the financial intermediary will charge some form of commission. The other way that the elements interact with one another is indirectly. So here, the borrower and the lender actually don't know each other. There is still a financial intermediary that sits between them, but now there's also the financial markets, and this is where the financial instruments come into play. So lenders and borrowers will interact with each other through a financial intermediary and the financial markets.